What's up guys? Now before we get into the video, I just want to let you know that episode 4 of the Swish Factor podcast is out. In this episode, we covered the first 3 days of the NBA season, talked about some of our initial impressions of some NBA teams, as well as some NBA rookies, and we go pretty in depth on some of the things you should look out for heading into the season. The iTunes and Google Play links to the podcast will be down in the description below. Make sure to go subscribe it so you get each episode sent right to your phone. Now in today's video, I'm talking about a subject that has less to do with the NBA itself, but rather the way we, fans, perceive the NBA. And I want to start off this video by asking you to react to the following statement. Marco Bellinelli is a bad defender. Now let's assume you know nothing about Marco Bellinelli and who he is as a player. When I tell you that Bellinelli is a bad defender, and assuming you value my opinion and judgment, your reaction will probably be, okay, that makes sense. It gives you a good idea of who he is as a defender. But in turn, when I say Marco Bellinelli is an average offensive player, that sounds a lot more weird and less informative. It prompts further questions such as, what do you mean by average offensive player? That doesn't tell me anything about Bellinelli. Is he good at shooting? Can he shoot threes? Can he shoot from mid-range? Is he good at shooting off the dribble? Can he handle the ball? Can he pass the ball? His court vision, is he clutch? Can he make free throws? Me telling you that Marco Bellinelli is an average offensive player doesn't actually give you much information about who he is as an offensive player. But if I then proceed to say, Marco Bellinelli is a fantastic three-point shooter, especially spotting up and coming off of pin-down screens. He's a decent shooter off the dribble, but he struggles finishing at the rim, and he's a below-average ball handler and not much of a playmaker, then that right there gives you a much better picture of who he is as an offensive player. So for some reason, people feel that bad defender is sufficient to describe how a player is on defense, yet the same is not true for offense. Why is this? I think there's 3 reasons. Number 1, the degree to which a player can impact a game is more limited on defense than on offense, and thus offense does matter more than defense when it comes to judging an individual player. And if you want to argue with me on that, let me just ask you, who's the more valuable player? Tony Allen or James Harden? Thank you. Let's move on. Number 2, defensive metrics and statistics are sorely lacking behind offensive statistics. We can first just look at a traditional box score. Rebounding is both offensive and defensive, but points, field goal percent, three-point percent, free throw percent, assists, turnovers are offensive statistics. And in turn, you have steals and blocks for defense. Furthermore, basic offensive statistics is better at representing a player's offensive impact than defensive statistics are at measuring defensive impact. For example, a player can register 0 steals and 0 blocks, but still have a very good game defensively. Whereas it's hard to say that someone had a good game offensively if they registered 0 points, 0 assists, and 0 offensive rebounds. Assists per game, for example, does a better job representing someone's passing and playmaking ability than steals per game does representing overall perimeter defense. 3-point percentage and 3-point makes per game does a pretty good job representing a player's shooting ability, which makes it easy for fans to look at a traditional box score or a traditional per game stat line to see and judge a player's offensive capabilities. And while in recent years there have been better metrics that explain a player's defensive value, they're not yet universally accepted or commonly used enough to judge a player's defense, partially because of reason number 1, that people just care less about individual defense because it does matter less when judging individual players. I think every NBA fan would agree that defense, more so than offense, really requires you to watch the game. You really have to pay attention to the details, look at how the players move and rotate defensively. Which brings me to reason number 3, which is that 90% of NBA highlights are offensive plays. When you watch the daily top 10, 8 or 9 of those are usually offensive highlights. When you watch 2-minute recaps, 90% of those are offensive highlights. When you watch the 9-minute full game highlight videos, those are also edited to show you made baskets and offensive highlights. And look, nobody has time to watch every single NBA game. I wish I could, but nobody can do that. But only watching those type of videos or watching too much of those type of videos can really twist your perception of a player and doesn't really allow you to truly analyze that player's defense. Okay, so what's the point of bringing all this up? Why did I make a video talking about this? Well, number 1, because I think it's just interesting. But number 2, more importantly, the goal of this video is that hopefully after watching this, it can help all of us think about basketball and specifically an individual's defensive ability in a more critical manner. And together we, the NBA fan community, can have higher quality conversations and debates about players. So I'll start off by giving a couple examples. Instead of saying Hassan Whiteside is a great defender, period, here's perhaps a better way of saying that. And again, these are my personal observations. Whiteside is statistically one of the best shot blockers in the league, both as a rim protector and as a weak side shot blocker, and his length makes it very difficult for a player to score over him when he has the ball inside. However, Whiteside is also not very mobile on defense and thus can't switch onto perimeter players, which makes him less versatile defensively than other big men with quicker feet like Nerlens Noel or Anthony Davis. He is a fantastic defensive rebounder and is difficult to push around due to his size, but his effort defensively is questionable at times. However, his elite shot blocking and defensive rebounding more than make up for his deficiencies, so overall he is a very good defender and certainly elite at most things you want from a center. Here's another example. Instead of saying Steph Curry is a good or bad defender, say something like this. Steph Curry is an average to below average on-ball defender with a bad habit of committing unnecessary fouls on defense. But he is great at reading passing lanes, evident with the fact that he's averaged about 2 steals per game for multiple years, and he's specifically very good at stealing the ball away from big men. He does put forth a lot of effort defensively for a superstar, and combined with his basketball IQ, it makes him a very active and aware defender, which translates into him being good with rotations and being an overall great team defender. However, it is also important to note that 1. The past couple years, he's played with other great defensive players, and 2. His teammate Klay Thompson is the one that usually defends the best opposing guard, although that is more of a reflection of how elite Klay Thompson is as an overall defender rather than Curry being necessarily a bad one. Because Curry does have somewhat of a weakness defensively, I wouldn't categorize him as elite per se, but I do think he's definitely above average in my eyes. Okay, now I want to talk about defense just a little bit more. Offense and defense matter equally as much when it comes to winning games and when it comes to winning championships. And I stand by my statement that offense does matter more than defense when it comes to judging individual players. I mean, again, James Harden over Tony Allen. But if that's true, then that also means that defense is more team-oriented than offense, which also makes sense. This is not to say that teamwork doesn't matter on offense, because it obviously does, but it's just to say that it matters less. You can have just one good offensive player and the other 4 people not do anything, you can still score points as a team. I mean, just think Kobe Bryant 2006. But if you only have one good defensive player and the other 4 players not do anything on defense, you're basically 100% screwed every possession. I would also argue that there's simply less individual skill when it comes to playing defense. Psychologist Angela Duckworth in her book Grit proposed a simple formula to measure success in any field, which is skill times effort equals achievement. All of us would agree that effort plays a huge role in playing defense and less so playing offense. And if skill times effort equals achievement, then the more effort plays a part in defense, the less skill involved. Again, not to say that there's no skill in playing defense, there is. I mean, when you go to the gym practicing, are you spending time sliding your feet, practicing your box outs, contesting shots? Maybe, but I guess that you'd be spending a lot more time handling the ball, working on your shot, and so forth. When you go on YouTube and you find full workout clips of NBA players training by themselves, they similarly spend around 90% of their individual basketball training on offensive skills. Again, not to say that defense matters less, it matters just as much, but defense is more team-oriented and it's harder to train as an individual skill. So yes, after talking about the reasons why defense is rarely talked about in detail, I understand that it isn't realistic to expect people to ever talk about defense the same way they talk about offense, nor is it necessary because there really is less to talk about. But I still think that on average, we could all spend a little more time talking about individual defensive skills than we do right now. And I want to give you a challenge if you made it this far into the video, and that's to comment down below your defensive analysis or profiling of any player in the NBA you want down in the comment section below. And again, as specific as possible. And before I end this video, I want to give a massive shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. SeatGeek, of course, the best way to buy tickets to concerts and sporting events. Before you buy the ticket, they show you a full preview of what the seat will look like when you actually get there, so you know exactly what you're buying. They also compare prices from different ticket selling websites so you can get the best deal possible. Green represents good deals, red represents bad deals. The whole app makes it super easy to use, and it allows you to make good and quick decisions when buying tickets. Download the app by clicking the link down in the description below and use my promo code MDJ for $20 off of your first purchase. With that being said, thanks for watching the video. I'm MDJ. See you next time.